Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Tonight on the Get That Skate podcast, we're going to be talking about the status of downhill skateboard graphics.
Yes, we are. Thanks for the intro.
No worries.
Just let the people know who's here tonight.
We have got to the right, we have Mitchell Thompson.
Big fella, how are you?
Hell yeah. And then we've got Dominic Taylor.
Good morning.
Good evening. And then we have Jack Main,
Yes.
the man.
You're really nervous right now, aren't you? He's shaking.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm here for you.
Welcome
You
to our
need me.
gracious host, Jack Main.
Welcome back to the Get That Skate podcast. Thank you, Marlo, for that intro. I know you're scared. I know he doesn't want to be on this podcast. He reckons he has nothing to say, but he's got great things to say. And we care about the opinions of others. But yeah, we're going to talk about skateboard graphics. You said something earlier.
Yeah, so as a person who is loosely into downhill skateboarding as time's gone on, I'm a big fan of graphics and how graphics sell boards. So
Yeah.
I think that it's actually quite an important topic to speak about because the state of graphics at the moment is not where
It's
we need it to
beautiful.
be.
Not where it should be. But you mentioned that like when you were a beginner, and not just you, but most beginners, the board, like most people's first board is based off what the graphic looks like. And that's kind of what catches someone's eye to start off with. When it comes to purchasing your first board, like I've spoken about a lot on the podcast. One of my first boards was a FlexDex Kelly Slater. It just had a plain white graphic and said Kelly Slater. But I was actually, in my years of collecting, which if you're friends of me, you know I like collecting boards, I actually tracked down one of my first ever Sector 9s recently. And the reason I bought this Sector 9 at the time was purely because I thought the graphic was sick. And luckily,
Here we go.
I can show you.
We've got it right here.
Sector 9, really well known back in the late 2000s for their surf-inspired graphics. This is like a big lightning bolt on a beach. And I remember buying this board super young just because I was like, the graphic's so sick. It's not the best graphic these days. And it's a board like the shape is something different that I liked at the time, but I just got it because the graphic was sick. But yeah, you mentioned earlier that how important graphics are when you're buying your first board.
Yeah, for sure. So for me personally, I remember I had friends that rode skateboards and cruisers and whatnot, and then all I wanted was the board with the sickest graphic. So I spent days, hours, probably months actually, researching what the coolest board I could get was. I ended up landing on the lamest board possible.
What was it?
It was a Sector 9 as well. It was a cruiser. It was probably 30 inches long. It was a similar shape to that without the swallowtail. But It was the lamest board, but I think it was just the only one we could afford. But I went for so long and just looked at so many different graphics. There were so many graphics on cruisers, so many graphics on downhill boards. And I think I ended up getting overwhelmed. But that is so cool because now you can't look anywhere and find many graphics, to be honest.
Mitty, when you first started, did you purchase any boards purely for the graphic?
No, I was kind of on a budget more so.
Yeah.
So I was like trying to get marketplace deals or Gumtree deals and everything like that.
Yeah.
Sorry, Gumtree is like Craigslist for the rest of the world.
The rest
In
of the
Australia, we call it Gumtree. We're very simple people. But yeah, I was going off cheapest. But they look cool sometimes. Actually, graphics back then, everything was kind of cool. It all had a vibe and everything. It all fit in.
Milo, what about you? You haven't been skating for as long as us three, but
I've been skating street for a long time, but downhill not so much. But my first ever board was a Sector 9 Bob Marley cruiser board.
Yep.
super
Long,
popular graphics.
Flexi deck, Bob Marley, looked cool, simple, but it had him on it. It was cool.
Before we, so the kind of what we're going to talk about today, we're just going to talk about some graphics that stand out to us. Might not even be our favorite boards, like shapes, but just sick graphics from over the years. And I know that this is a cool topic that most downhill skateboarders or longboarders would be able to talk about with ease, just about what they liked. But before we talk about specific boards, what are some, like, I look back to the times when we started skating and like rain. had some of the most iconic graphics that we're going to talk about on this podcast, and they were really well known for like keeping the same artist.
Yeah.
And the same vibe.
They had such a good run there.
Yeah.
It was all like a similar vibe. Didn't matter if it was green or white or whatever. It was all the similar kind of artwork.
Yeah. Similar artists is always cool. And I know like, in 2024, looking at the Pantheon graphics, which is a company you ride for, Mitty, they use the same artist, right?
Yeah. And it all flows over. Even if the different colors and different things going on, you can tell it's the same kind of vibe.
Which is really cool. But like when I got into downhill skateboarding, land yachts, like the land yachts Evo graphics, that green tree graphic, like super iconic. I was probably going to touch on it throughout this episode, but like the Sector 9 downhill division graphics, like you just knew, okay, yeah, that red and yellow and the pin-up girl on the graphic, you just knew it was a Sector 9 before reading what the brand name was on it. But some sick graphics, and we're going to talk about, just share a couple boards today as to why. But Marley, you also had something to say in the preparation for this podcast about graphics, because we had so much to talk about, like preparing for this podcast, about what graphics we loved and all that. And you were kind of you're on the other side.
I just like a very simplistic graphic. If it's got nothing on it, that's better for me.
Right.
And then, but saying that, Happy Boards, they made some pretty cool stuff. It was like half wood, half carbon, still super simple, but they just made it look good. And I've always cared more about the shapes and the concave and
you're more
how
into the
functional it
board.
is and whatnot.
And these days, that is obviously what we go for.
Yeah.
But today we'll just specifically talk about graphics. But like the blank graphic, it's super popular these days for a lot of, especially the small directional downhill boards from a lot of brands. And I do also like a blank graphic. And I think what's cool about having a blank graphic is it's kind of like a new canvas, like a clean slate for you to make it your own in terms of the stickers. Yeah. Like I know you, Mitty, when you were prototyping your Pantheon board, the only sticker you had on that blank deck was to get that sticker, you know what I mean? So yeah, you gotta think about what's important.
And that's kind of the way it's gone. Like people are like, if you're making a board now and you want to talk about the performance, you don't really put a graphic on it. You let the board speak for itself. And
True.
I can see the way that's gone. It's more of a, like this board speaks for itself. We don't really need a graphic, and I respect that.
It's a great point.
A killer graphic topping off a killer board puts it together.
I think it just kind of puts it on another level.
Yeah, if you can get both bang on, because sometimes boards come out, the boards are amazing, the graphics aren't so good.
Yeah.
Or the graphics are amazing, but the board to actually ride isn't the best board. But when you put both together, and I think that's kind of the choices that we've all made, is like boards that were actually really good to ride with a really sick graphic.
Yeah.
People just care about having a stiff board these days, and they put a weight on it, they drill holes in it, they put screws in it, they put stickers on it, they put
we messed
toe
these
stops
boards up.
They don't care what it looks like. The thing is ugly
underneath,
but does it work? It works.
Yeah, that's
you know, like all the best.
But that's what I'm saying. We're not talking about that today. We're going to talk about sick graphics.
Exactly.
Now I know you got some.
So, well, this is still on that topic, really, for me. It is funny now how everyone's got their own custom thing. So, like for me, turning up to a slide jam in like 2013, 2014, 2015, a race even, you see like 100 people at a hill, 30 people have the same board. You can tell by the graphic. You see them all walking up with their board under their arm, rocking probably the same trucks. There wasn't as many variations of trucks out, rocking the same board.
Same stickers probably.
Yeah.
Like a Hopkins sticker or whatever.
Yeah, man. And you know immediately what that board is, whereas now when someone's got a weight on their board and they've got this and like they've got so many different things.
It's hard to distinguish what it is.
Yeah. So for me, like it doesn't bring me to go and buy a board necessarily, because all these different people are riding it a different way, which I can credit Rocket for, because Benno's board, is that Rocket? I don't know much about boards anymore.
Dom flows in now the scene.
Yeah, so that in itself is like its own thing where they put the hole in the board for the weight. So you know now when you see this little board with a weight on it, like that's the Don kind of thing.
Well, I like what you said about like, and it's like pulling a magazine off a shelf, but the times, you know, those early early 2010s years, like 2012, 13, 14, 15, when there were lots of slide jams, particularly in Australia. But I like how you touched on that there would be so many people with the same board. And I think back to those times and I'm like, the Land Yachts Wolf Shark, like how many people had that board?
Exactly.
And you'd see so many at a slide jam or a race even, or just like sessions that were popping up where there'd be lots of people, organised skates, and you'd be like, okay, the Land Yachts, everyone loves that board. It's got a sick graphic. It was almost like a bit of a meme at the time. You know, there was people doing like all the galaxy print stuff. It was kind of like Landy were like, what's funny? What can we do that's funny?
Yeah.
And it ended up being one of the most iconic boards of that era, I guess. But moving, like, then as Landy were having progression, like there was a time where, and not like the majority of people, of course, because everyone has their own thing, but there was a time where the Land Yachts Peacemaker came out and you'd see that board everywhere and that graphic everywhere. And then the same with Rain. Like when Rain, you know, the Avenger, the Kill Switch, when the Kill Switch graphic got updated from the Totem, is that what they called it?
I think so, yeah.
Like the original K-Rhymes Kill Switch with that sick Totem graphic, and then eventually that changed to, it was like a god.
Yeah, yeah. It's like an evolution of the board in a way. And that's kind of like where you could see companies going. They evolve like their graphics kind of with how their company's going, you know what I mean? Like Land Yachts was kind of poking fun at the Astro thing, like you were just saying and everything. And then they evolved into a bit cartoony, I guess you could say, almost in a way. But it's the way things were going. And you can keep up to date. Oh, that board came out in 2011 because it looked like that probably. And this one came out in 2015. Yeah. Yeah.
And it's like Sector 9, always known for their, in the early days of Sector 9, they were known for their surf graphics, their wave graphics. They would have beautiful waves on the boards from like a vast selection of photographers. But then Sector 9 started doing the bamboo boards, and the bamboo boards had like a hand drawn, not individually on the board, but the graphic was like a hand drawn graphic of different waves from around the world. And after years of putting out new lineups with those decks, they become quite like, you know, recognizable, and you just knew without having to find where the brand name was. You're like, yeah, it's a Sector 9.
Same with the Bob Marley boards.
Same with the Bob Marley boards, yeah.
But like, you know, if you see a Bob Marley board, you know that's a Sector 9.
Yeah.
But with the downhill stuff as well, it's like you can modify, like say with the Wolf Shark, people were chopping the nose off, chopping the tail off, chopping the gas pedals off. They were putting all sorts of things with that, but you still saw, if it was a 2012, you saw the green. Yeah. If it was a 2011, which people messed with a lot.
Yeah.
Mutilated,
you could still see the Galaxy graphic in the background. You can see the same thing. So it's still, you're still seeing someone with that board. So you know, I don't know, you know that's a choice board. You know that's a good board. Yeah. Like it's, but if, I mean, for me now, if I see a blackboard and it's a circle or an oval, like I just go, okay, that's another board.
What is it? Yeah.
What is it? And I have to, I mean, it's a good conversation starter, I suppose, but like, what is it? What is this? What is this plank of wood? What is this rectangle? What is this oval? Like, I don't know. Yeah.
So when we're going to talk about a few boards and some reasons why we like those graphics and like what it meant at the time, but I'll put up a picture over the video if you're watching this on YouTube. I'll put up a picture of the board that we're talking about so you can see the graphic. But I think we'll rip into some graphics now if one of you boys would like to start.
Let's start the end here. Marlo, do you want to start?
Yeah. So Marlo, how long have you been skating for downhill?
Not very long.
What year did you start?
Give us a background.
Well, I've known about it for ages. My brother used to skate back in like 2010, 2011, whatnot. He skated he skated a Bob Marley cruiser like I did, and then he went to a Wolf Shark.
So when we've mentioned popular graphics, for the Rain Avenger, do you know what we're talking about or not?
Yeah,
really?
I know all the boards. I still know everything. I've always kept up with it, but I just never did it.
Yeah. So what was the board that really stood out for you? Like, and again, I know we could talk for hours about performance and shapes, but let's talk about graphics.
Well, Valhalla as a company stood out to me, and then the Black Dolphin in specific, just because so many South African skaters skated that board, and it's such a popular board over there.
Why did so many Valhallas get to South Africa?
Khalil, one of the boys over there, he rode for Valhalla ages ago.
And what was it? Baboon was getting a lot of decks in as well?
Couldn't tell you.
Yeah.
I think it was just him, really, just getting all the decks, and then giving
them
them
out.
away, selling them, whatever you want to do with them.
So talk about the Black Dolphin
There's
graphic.
heaps of them over there, and the graphic is pretty controversial.
Yeah.
Depending on your beliefs and whatnot. But I know some people would sound it off because they didn't like it, but they like the deck, and some people would keep it and whatnot. I like it. I think it's a cool graphic. It's got a whole lot going on. It's not very colourful, but it's got enough to make it stand out, and you know what you're looking at when you see it.
I think if you hear the name Valhalla, you can definitely fits the theme of the name for sure. You know,
it's on brand.
Yeah, which is cool. That's awesome.
Yeah, it fits.
So it's like a demonic goat or some sort of animal sitting on like a bit of a throne. Not super colorful. You know, there's lots of graphics around that time, and maybe it was Valhalla's way of like going against the grain. You know what I mean? With
and
like
their graphics have always been kind of like that.
Yeah,
just kind of simple colors.
Yeah,
like very complex.
It was it was a dark board. This and not just what was in the graphic, but the graphic itself. It was like 3 colors. It was like a kind of like a brushed green, black, and white.
I think if you think of the most accessible downhill brand, Sector 9, and you go the complete opposite, you'd land on this graphic.
What the Black Dolphin was.
Yeah.
Got like edgy, you'd say almost.
Yeah. It definitely
like
it definitely fit the people that might not feel like they fit in society maybe, or like that they want to go that extra level. I think that's definitely what that would appeal to.
And that's
what
the whole brand was about.
Yeah,
it wasn't like
100%.
a colourful, like loaded lanyards kind of family friendly brand. They were dropping videos that were crazy and just out of.
Well, do you remember the video for the Black Dolphin?
Yes,
to hype it
I
up?
do.
It was like in the forest. It was really, the sound design was insane. It was like almost like
the graphic could pop up on the screen.
Yeah. It was like a scary kind of trailer for the board, which set the tone of what that board ended up being. I guess.
Awesome video.
Yeah. But I
board.
I liked hearing the story, Milo, of you know, a couple of the fellas from South Africa who sanded it off, and I would believe if more people, you know, particularly in North America where this board was easy to get out up there, I could imagine a lot more people like spraying that board or sanding the graphic off because it's got symbols on it that I don't even know what they are, and it's demonic, and it's just like sick graphic.
You could be in the wrong part of town with that and get in a lot of trouble.
Yeah, I wonder how many you know, Groms
That's what I was thinking.
got that, you know, ordered that board for
And
Christmas or their birthday, and it's rocked up. What did the parents have to say?
And the very straight and narrow parents are like, oh hell no, you're getting like we're trading this. You're getting like a lanyard, something pretty graphic now.
Thinking back on that, that's definitely one of those ones where
happened for sure.
A child who has a free rein to their parents' credit card, it gets that board, and then it turns up and they go, oh my god!
Yeah, what have you done?
What is my
They
child
trick
doing?
their parents. They're like, "Can I just have like $200 to buy a board?" And
And
it
you know
turns
what?
up, and the mum's like, "No."
I'm with that. After thinking about that, I'm completely with that graphic, and I've always liked it, but I like it even more now. I think that's a lot of fun.
What about you, Midi?
Like coming up all the way through, and like I got cheap boards, like I was saying at the beginning. Didn't really care about the graphic. I never owned this board per se because I kind of jumped this kind of style of board. I had a similar
As in
deck,
the shape,
and like its function and everything, the size of it. I kind of jumped it, but Rain Graphics always dragged me to them from day dot. They just want to roll there. They were pumping out these awesome graphics.
Yeah,
and so it's the original Avenger graphic. It's the white one with the mammoth with the hotel on his back. I guess
like a Japanese like little hut or something.
I'm gonna butcher whatever I try and say it is, but it's definitely that. And I never owned it, but if there's a board I was going to go hunt down right now and wall hang, it's that. It's an iconic board because that many OGs wrote it, shredded it. You'd see it in videos, and the graphic goes with it.
There is one here somewhere, isn't there?
Got one.
I got 2.
Yeah,
Gimme.
Yeah, I've got a fresh Never Mounted one that Callum gifted to me, and I actually wrote a Rain Avenger.
Yeah.
So I've spoken a lot on the podcast about my like progression in the early days in terms of what boards I had, but my first downhill board was a Landyacht's Chinook. It's actually probably what I'm going to talk about the graphic on this podcast. But my first board, and this is when the very, very early days because it was a top mount board.
It was kind of edgy at the time.
It
almost.
was if you were riding a top mount board, it was like, oh, but that's not a proper downhill board because there was so many drop throughs and drop downs and double drops, which is drop through and drop down.
Did that at that time? So that's just a bit before my time.
That's what I was thinking.
Is that was a top mount board seemed like looked at as not like a stable board, like you couldn't go fast on it because it's not dropped through.
My feeling, my perception of the time is you're riding a top mount board, like it's not going to be as good as
because wasn't it about getting as close to the ground as possible, or like
it was
that's
proven,
what I remember.
I think it was just proven. Everyone's like an Evo is like the board downhill you race on, and then it just had to be proven that top mount board could really do it.
Yeah, because I remember in the early days of me riding, I always had top mounts, but I always wanted to be as close to the ground as possible. If I was high off the ground, I couldn't roll.
But the thing about rain, and I look back on those times, Mitty, and obviously I just explained, I ended up that was my first top mount downhill board. There are brands that refresh their graphics every year, and that's so cool. I love that thought and care goes into it, and there's an artist or a photographer that's being supported to change those graphics. But that Rain Avenger graphic stayed for years.
And I believe they updated it, and then they re-released the white one again. They dropped it back because people wanted it so much. So it just says how much.
Because it became iconic for that shape.
Yeah, it became iconic. The little cutout and the tail to where to grab the board from was iconic too. So like the board as a whole and the graphic just really topped off. And that's what we were kind of saying at the start. If the board's awesome and the graphic goes with it and makes it even better, then it's
puts it on another level.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I really wish we had a photo that you probably can't even find one on the internet of someone holding the tail of the Rain Avenger and
dragging it up a hill,
walking their board up the hill with the wheels rolling on the ground.
Like a dog on a leash?
Yeah, literally.
I never knew what that hole was for.
That's what it's for. Because how long is that board? Like 38?
38-ish or 37.
38. So if you're a bit shorter, you can definitely drag that along.
So we're talking about graphics, and I've tried to steer clear of talking about shapes today, but the Rain Avenger had a cutout on the tail, and like you explained, that you'd be at a slide jam or you'd be skating with people, and people would drag that board by their finger. And I've never spoken to the owners of each of these brands, but there was a bit of longboard beef at the time, right?
Bit of history here with
a little bit of history, of course. Little lesson I'll teach you. But there's very famous, very important brand in downhill skateboarding and longboarding is Quebec from Canada.
Yeah.
And Quebec brought a board out named the Revenger. So it's a play on the name of the Rain Avenger. And the Revenger was a larger, it's like basically the same shape as the Rain Avenger, and the cutout in the back was like a hand signal like that. And what I was told back in the day was that Rain brought out a board that was like a cut copy of one of Quebec's boards. So to get back at Rain, Quebec brought out that board, and the versions I saw were plain like wood stain boards that just said the name of that shape on it. The Revenger.
It was just to get back.
Yeah, it was just to get back. Eventually, I think they brought out one with a cool graphic, but it didn't stand iconic like the Avenger did. But yeah, just a little side story.
Yeah.
I also think that the that hole was to accommodate for all the people with the drop downs that were dragging their boards up the hill.
Yeah.
Like, because everyone used to walk up a hill and you'd have 10 people with drop downs, more grabbing their boards, dragging them
pulling
up the hill.
By the truck.
Because they're like 40, 42, 44 inch boards.
And the wheels were right on the end, so you could do it.
Yeah. Like you wouldn't want to pick it up. They're heavier than the boards today with weights on them. So
you pretty much ride that board upside down.
Honestly.
The wheels still stick out the bottom.
What about you, Dom?
For me, I was a big Comet graphic fanboy. However people feel about that, I don't know. But my favorite graphic was the Grease Hammer. So that was probably when I talked about before all the different boards that I looked at. If we could afford to get a whole setup, it would have been a Grease Hammer. That would have been the first thing I saw. So the Grease Hammer was... So the grease hammer had a hammerhead shark. I believe it had 3 eyes, and it was sitting in like a paint bucket full of grease. Don't know why that appealed to me, but I just thought the art style, the colors, everything is just like exactly what I liked, and the shape fit that board perfectly. I just really liked it, and I believe Byron rode. Did he ride a grease hammer or a grease shark? Either way, it doesn't matter because he rode that one of those, the same shape, one of those 2 variations.
I was going to ask, was it linked to any rider in particular?
It probably was,
because that's how I think about boards. I'm like, who was riding that board at that time?
Yeah.
When you're like Grommy, you're watching that. And Byron was a big thing for you, so
I believe I even saw that board before I saw any skateboarding, like proper downhill.
Before you knew what it was.
Before anything, I remember seeing that board in particular and being like, I want that. But I think this probably sounds cheap to this day. I think they would have been about 175 Australian dollars.
Damn.
Which at that time was that's more than I paid for my first complete. Like,
yeah,
that was like, oh, that's too much, I can't afford that. So, but that graphic itself was what in particular was like my favorite graphic of me progressing in skateboarding.
And that was a board that similar to how we mentioned the wolf shark at the start of this episode, is like a lot of people had the grease hammer or the grease shark. I think the artist name, because, and you'd know this, Mitty, from watching Comet over the years, very similar to Rain in the sense of they use the same artist.
Yeah.
And all the boards had a similar vibe. And I believe, and I could be wrong here, but just going off the dome, the artist name was Chris Dyer, who is, still doing amazing art these days, I believe. But the grease shark, the grease hammer,
all of those 2012
the
lineup
ethos
boards in
boards,
2013.
the shreds,
yeah,
all had a similar vibe, and I feel like that's why Comet is still a name that gets spoken about these days. They're not putting graphics on their newest boards. They are on the shreds. They got a shred 35 and a 33, and
I
they've
have
got
a
a cool
limited
graphic.
one, a one of 20 ethos with a 2013 ethos 36 graphic. I think it's the blue one. I think there was 20 of those of the new ethos made.
Yeah.
But then
and you were so excited.
I'm still so excited.
Is that the
I
one
don't want to
that's got-
skate it because I'm so excited
Is
about
that
it.
the one that's heaps flexy with torsional and everything on it?
It's in
Maybe
there.
back in the day, I reckon more so, but the construction's a lot better.
It's definitely
Sure.
But
better
like
now.
when people talk about what brands are iconic in that first kind of boom of longboarding, Comet is a name that's always brought up. And I think a huge part of that would be is because they had those similar style graphics for their entire lineups, and they were so noticeable. They were noticeable like a Rain was.
Yeah.
And
And
amazing boards.
Even when they switched their graphics up and went away from that that kind of style, and
Yeah.
they went into like the next Liam Morgan Pro model and everything, and
Yeah.
the archetype and all that, it was all a similar style. So they really said, "Yep, this is our style, and this is our new style." And so you could really pick when the boards were from, what era they were from, everything like that.
For me, that 2012-13 lineup, on like as much as I didn't do it, it was a bit of a catch-em-all Pokemon style thing. You wanted to collect them all because they all had that similar art style. You could put them all on a wall next to each other. I don't know how many there were. There's actually, we looked at it before, there's a lot more than I thought there were.
You were shocked.
But you could have one of each. So you could have like a shred, an ethos, a grease hammer. You could have a voodoo doll.
Yep.
I'm blanking, but there's more. There's so many more. But you could have all of them, and they all had some kind of cohesiveness.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really cool thing about having the same artist. Same with the Pantheons now.
Yeah.
Something like that's pretty cool to me.
Well, I'd like to talk about Pantheon boards because I feel like when you look at all of the board brands these days that are doing something consistent, and there are a few. I love Rocket's graphics. They're kind of like
Geometric shapes.
but
animals
it's like that. It's like that style of tattooing where it's like dots. It's kind of like that. I think of that when I see Rocket's graphics. But I wanted to talk about Pantheon's graphics because they are they're mostly full board really colorful, really intricate designs, like just sick designs that are really filling up the shape of a board. And it's to the point now when, like, I'm not just speaking for myself, I could probably speak for other people, but you see a board and you're like, oh, that's a Pantheon. Before you even find the name Pantheon on it, you're like, okay, that graphic, it's screaming Pantheon. And I've got a few Pantheons, lucky enough. Shout out to Jeff, who's hooked me up with some Pantheon boards over the time. But like, the board that I ride the most in my life is the Pranayama. It's a blue graphic. Yeah. And they did bring out a second graphic for the Pranayama, and it's a great graphic, but they brought back the original graphic, I guess, because it was so iconic for that shape.
Yeah, a lot of people online were saying they miss it.
They miss it, yeah. And I was one of those people who said that, like, new graphic's cool, but like nothing will beat the old one.
Yeah, and it's that iconic graphic.
Yeah. So
what's on it?
It's a blue graphic.
Yeah.
I've got one. I'm going to grab it. Hold on. I'll be back in 1 second.
Some sort of animal? Or?
Talk about Pantheon.
Don't put him on the spot there.
Well, no, I just have no idea what's on it.
Well, I really like the fact that it's coherent with the rest of the lineup.
I like Pantheon. They're the only brand out right now that's putting out graphics that are like in your face.
Jeff's really going hard on
and I love it.
And crazy boards too. They're very different. They're not just your average flat concave.
Ow. Here's the graphic. It's like I said, very blue. Some sort of like praying meditative dude.
A Buddha?
With a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 snakes, like cobras behind him. Dude, I've actually looked at this graphic so much, and I've never
until
really
you really look at it.
Yeah, it's a really good graphic.
It's almost like the Valhalla graphic with the one hand that way, the other one that way.
Yeah,
like
but
the black dolphin in a way.
Yeah, true. But it's
and the snakes and stuff, because it's got the Valhalla board's got the Medusa on it with the snakes coming out of her head and stuff.
Yeah, good observation.
It's similar, but very different.
The Pantheon that I want to talk about, thank you, Mr. Jacopo in the crowd behind the camera. Come and say hello. Hello, guys. But the Pantheon board that I want to talk about is, and I've got one next to me, however, the graphics mostly covered in stickers, but Mitty, you've spoken about the graphic for your Pro Model board.
Yes.
Tell us about the colours.
It's very kind of iconic with me, the pink kind of purple kind of colour combo going on.
Yeah. I've
just
got one
bright.
Here. Like I said,
loud.
I've got some stickers covering this graphic, sadly. I need another one for the wall, Mitty. But you've spoken about how this graphic, you mentioned something about like a skate shaman and like you and Timmy.
Yeah.
But that's incorrect. So the reason I love this graphic, and Marlo, you know this.
I know this.
So
here we go.
I think you might have been under the influence of alcohol when you explained the graphic last time, because what it is, I don't know if you knew this, Dom.
No.
But the Pantheon graphic, shout out to Jeff, shout out to the artist, of course. But the Pantheon graphic, it's actually me. So this is me.
You're the skate shaman.
No, it's just me.
Wow.
No skate shaman. It's just.
Oh my goodness, you claimed yourself as a skate shaman.
No, I'm
That's
not
awesome.
a skate shaman. It's just me, dude. I'm just sitting there, kicking around the fire. Mitty, you got Mitty here, and Timmy, and I'm just telling them 6 stories about downhill. You know what I mean?
Timmy lost hair.
Everything they know.
Yeah, when Jeff said to Mitty, like, what do you want? Mitty's like, okay, I've got this friend Jack who like. And so, yeah, that's the story behind the Pantheon graphic. But this straight up, though, the colour scheme.
It's on brand.
It's one colour.
Yeah.
Over a black deck. And that, how long has this board been out for? It came out a year today.
Yesterday?
With the official release.
Officially to buy today. Yeah. But we told everyone about it yesterday.
Today is the 19th of July, 2024.
Yeah. So 19th of July,
it's been
2023 was when it was released.
Yeah, last year. Yeah.
Wow.
But I think even over just that 1 year, a black finished deck with a one color print graphic, I feel like you just take one glance and you're like, yeah, it's the MIDI Pro.
It's like complex but simple. You know what I mean? And you've covered up a lot of the complexity with your travels and the passes that you've done. But Yeah, and I really like your take on it.
It's just what the graphic is. But yeah, I love Pantheon's graphics. I love Pantheon's graphics. We were talking, and if you wouldn't mind talking about it now, but the another Pantheon board with a sick graphic.
Yeah, like when we're trying to think about these, I was thinking iconic graphics that have been through the test of time. And
board down.
Continue.
I don't know how that went down.
Yep.
Oh God. And you can always come back to me. It's iconic.
Yeah.
But then I was like also thinking like, what's a graphic that speaks from it's like a pro model graphic basically. A graphic that speaks about the person they came up with, really speaks to them.
Yeah.
And you know, I thought around, I looked around. I always had this one right in the front of my head, but I'm like, what else is out there? I'm gonna double check.
Yeah. And
I kept coming back to it, and it's Chase's graphic, Chase Hiller's graphic on his Pantheon board, and it is.
Talk about it.
We're about to get another one.
Jack Main's got it, obviously. It's a graphic that's perfect. It's this like continuous road from the top to the bottom of the board. It goes through his favorite places that he's been skating and traveling around the
right
world.
Up close with that one.
It's pretty complex when you look into it. It's like the other one that you just set up. It's very complex when you get into it. But basically that year he did a lot of traveling. He went to a lot of countries, a lot of continents, and
dude, he had a
mammoth year.
Couple years.
And but like I think this one in particular was just specific to this year, which was 2022. I want to say 2022. And it's his favorite places. Some of them were like layover places. He was there. I think Hong Kong. He was only there for like a short time, but he just loved the skating so much and everything else. And he's been to some great places, and that he's put that on a board, and everyone can enjoy it. They can kind of understand Chase's mind and what he loves about it.
So like his graphic tells a story, is what you're saying.
Basically, yeah.
Of the year that he had and his favorite places skating. So.
All his favorite destinations. It would probably have Colombia on there. It'd have to.
No, but it does have isn't part of the graphic Romania?
Yeah,
I think he's mentioned.
Romania.
With a castle on it.
Yeah. Like it's everything, and it's very up to interpretation. Like you can kind of look at that and be like, oh yeah, that looks like a corner that I love.
Yeah.
And you can relate to it in a way, even if you're not from these countries or anything like that.
Yeah.
But I think Chase had an awesome idea. Make a continuous road. This was his like continuous trip, and that's why I just keep coming back to him. Like, it's perfect pro model graphic.
Yeah. Well, do you know what I feel like is beautiful about this graphic is how he has, and the artist is the artist Eddie Kim?
Yeah.
Yeah. So shout out to Eddie Kim, who does majority
it says right there.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it does too. Who does the majority or all of Pantheon's graphics?
Yeah.
So Chase, I guess, just taking a shot in the dark here, kind of gave his vision to Eddie, and this is what Eddie came up with. But what I find beautiful is this is like an artistic interpretation of a conversation we have all the time. Like if you could put all your favorite parts from different roads together to make one road, what would it be? Like we've all had that conversation, and that's what this graphic shows. And I feel like that's really beautiful. And I love that the thought that's gone into this.
Yeah,
because there are people. Not going to name names in particular, but there are people who have rode for other companies who've had no say in their pro model board.
Gee. Oh, yeah.
But it happens.
Suck. Yeah.
So the fact that Pantheon, shout out to Jeff again, who keeps Eddie around to make these beautiful graphics, but the way that Eddie can work with someone, that Eddie and Jeff can work with one of their riders to produce a graphic like this is so sick.
And it's such a simple
I was
thing
about to say
do is to ask someone what they want on their board that you're releasing with their name.
Well, that's a good question. If you had, we can't really ask you this because you're doing it, and I know that there's some things in the background. But what would you have if you were to be given a pro model board or a bro model board or a signature board? What would you want on your graphic?
Okay. Okay, for me. Before that, that board appeals to me because the amount of times I've wanted to get a tattoo of a road that I've skated is not even funny.
Yeah.
But it's the only people that are producing stuff like that is Team Brokeoff with the stickers.
Yeah.
For me, I think honestly, my mic cut out. My foot's on the mic. That's me. For me, it would be that graphic is almost certainly exactly what I would get to a certain extent. So like for me, one of my favorite roads ever that I've skated is Polly's. So yeah, in Maui. So probably it would have something to do with Polly's, but I have in the past painted on my board just a mountain, like a road down a mountain. It would be something like that. And the fact that that chase board was released was crazy to me because that's one of my favorite graphics ever as well. It would be something to do with hairpins down a mountain road.
So I like that. You'd have something actually.
I can't hear it. Is that me? That could be my fault.
That was all your fault, brother.
Would you go like?
Go.
Right? Oh,
You clicked mute on my thing.
I muted
Dude,
you,
that was
lad.
bad because that won't come up in the anyway.
Oh, you put in the comments. Do you want Jack muted more often? Or
Yeah.
more
Lucky I muted him after he
Yeah,
spoke.
yeah.
I talk a lot. I like that you would have a realistic vibe to your graphic in terms of like it actually has something to do with skating, and if you know about Get That, that's like a core of the brand of Get That is putting actual skating on the graphics. So I like that. What else would you add to it, or is that it?
Would it be simple? Would it be complex?
It would be like so
colourful.
It is crazy how similar that thing is, like that chase graphic is to what I would do. But it would be quite simple, colourful, obvious, like tropical, because I really like I don't want to go out and skate a road when it's cold, no matter how cool it is. I want heat. I want to skate down a hairpin road and I want to go to the beach after, which is exactly the vibe of Polly's, of Maui, Raider, all of it.
Marlo, any ideas or would you just have a blank graphic like what you
See,
stated?
that's the thing. I'll have a blank board.
Is it
I
a
just
brick?
Like functionality. Brick's pretty cool. I like the brick. But either that or just some geometric patterns all over the whole thing. Just really simple.
Anything to tie it into you at all, or no?
No.
You just like leave it up to the people. They
Leave it
know
up to
I'm
the people.
Milo.
They can do what they want. They can sand it blank and draw their own graphic. They can take it to the print shop, get their own thing.
It's got to be a Milo tin, bro. You got to have a Milo tin.
Nah.
If I had to have a blank board, if I was forced to have a blank board,
you would want my one.
Yeah, that first. Second, I would have to have at least the brand, like CNC cutout, I suppose. If it's going to be blank, it's got to have something other than the blank. So it'd have to have like a CNC cutout, even if it was like.
I'd like to make them myself. And that's a one thing. I like making stuff, and I like to make my own boards, make my own molds and everything, but I don't know how. But I'd like to know how.
Oh God, help whoever gets on that board.
It's just for me. It's not for anyone else. You don't have to buy it.
What about you, Jack? What would you put on the board? You've got 50,000 ideas in your head, probably.
Yeah, I got good ideas. Like in terms of a collaboration that I would love to finalize and get done, I'd like to have a Get That graphic on a board, of course, just to kind of symbolize Get That and what it's done over the last 6 years. But like we spoke about it earlier, I would, in terms of where I'm at in my life right now, I do love the idea, like that you touched on, Dom, about incorporating important things to do with someone skating. So again, my favorite place in the world for skating, I speak about a lot on the podcast, is Hawaii. So I would incorporate like Polly's and Crater and Hawaii and the palm trees and the ocean. I could think of all those things would create a really cool graphic, but I think I'd like a graphic at this part of my life on something with my dog and I, because I'm skating. Most of the skating I do is just like LDP near my house with my dog running beside me. So hopefully one day I can get the opportunity to like collab on a Get That could collab on an LDP board, and it could have a graphic that would include my dog, because it's who I do most of my skating with. And I was
about to say, Bing gets you out more than the boys do.
The boys, 100%. Yeah.
Bing pulling him along. I see a lot of Strava posts with Bing pulling him along.
You could go, in my eyes, either way. Like you're either very simple, just like Get That, call it a day kind of thing, white, black, very simple.
One color.
Or you could tie a lot into it and have a lot going on. And it's either way, it's very, very Jackman.
Yeah. No, I'm excited to eventually start doing more collaborations to get these ideas out and to get fresh ideas. But In terms of like a collaboration, I really want to finalize and get done. It would be something quite simple. But after having these conversations and putting a lot more thought into what would come next, I would like to go back to the roots of what this conversation is about and have like a really detailed out there graphic. And because this is a thing, like not in this room, apart from the board behind me, but like I've got boards hung up all over my house, and it's not just a skateboard, it's art sometimes. Yeah. And I own boards that, you know, and every board should be written, and I will at some stage, but I own boards that are just like, it's just art, and I look at it like, look at how cool that graphic is.
Which shows how good a graphic can be. A graphic can make a board. Even if the board's not that great, it can make a board.
Well, you know, everyone's got their own tastes and their likes and their dislikes, but one of my favorite graphics from Madrid was, and it like saddens me that it didn't last long and it got changed, but the Harry Snitch graphic with the vomit. Yeah. Because that's key parts of Harry, and it's a pro model board for Harry.
The beer cans.
The vomit, the golden snitch is on that graphic, and it's taking personal parts of Harry and putting it into a graphic, and I'm like, well, that graphic means something. Yeah. I've got that hanging on my wall.
Exactly. And like, imagine if you were Grom back in the day and trying to, like, you didn't know Harry at all. You're trying to relate to Harry in a way. Yeah. You're like, wow, I've got his board. He vomits. Like, oh yeah, like he drinks beer, and I'm only a Grom, but I'm going to drink beer with Harry one day, and like stuff like that. Yeah. Think back in the day if like K-Rhymes had a board that had like very personal things to him. Yeah. And stuff like that, and he was very influential figure with you, and you could relate with him like that. Yeah. A board like that would be sick.
But that happened. Like, that was a real thing, especially for us being out in Australia. Like, I've always said through this podcast or this platform, whatever you want to call it, like, ego isn't a very cool thing. I'll be the first to be like, yeah, we used to fan out on downhill skaters back in the day. We're so far here in Australia from where most of the action was happening, North America, Europe. When we would have people come through, you'd go crazy on it, and you'd want someone's board, for example, the kill switch with Kevin Rama. I wanted that board because it was his. I didn't even give thought to the shape or how it would perform. It's like, it's Kevin's board, and I know it because of that totem graphic. Yeah. I'm just like, I would love to see more of that these days. There's not as many people skating, and it is very like, people know what they want, but I'd love to see more graphics come back.
Yeah, I'm just thinking of like, after getting knocked out at Newton's, standing at the top and going, like, just seeing people, like, for example, like, let's say if it was right now, seeing Haz at the top, like, vomiting, and then I know that the snitch has vomit on it. Yeah. And then I know the night before we've been drinking beers. Yep. And I'm going, wow, that's exactly, like, that's the graphic, like, you know, like,
that's exactly what he would have.
Yeah. So it's just like, it's good. Like, like that could just be a plain black board that says Harry Clark. But that's not Harry Clark, you know what I mean?
Which some people probably like.
Some people want that.
Yeah, exactly.
If you could have an option for a plain black and not a plain black, that'd be great. So I've got one more board to point out that I might have to get Jacopo to get for me because he's in the crowd today.
I'll go get it.
I was just there.
No, you won't go get it. It is the Land Yachts Blaze PT. It's Clayton Arthur's pro model.
Great board.
It is a great board.
I'm really sad because I don't think it's in production anymore, and it's such a sick board.
Really? I skated that for a bit. I really liked it.
I kind of need a poster, to be honest.
Just quick shout out to Clayton. He was nice enough to gift this to me at Tepe and Taco. So shout out to you, my bro, and I can't wait for you to come to Australia.
This is a sick board. This is a sick graphic. This is probably one of the best graphics that's come out in the last, like, long time.
Well, it's in the center, so there's still black areas of the board, which is what a lot of boards
put on the table.
Yeah, it is simple, but the graphic's in the middle and it pops out.
And the graphic, he
told us about this graphic when we're overseas.
Yeah, so it's I correct me if I'm wrong. This is his PT Cruiser that he had. I think he was given by his parents.
I was about to say, he picked me up in the BPs in this exact car,
really,
with the flames on the side.
That's awesome.
And all. It is a.
So we've got evidence of this being real.
And I'm so glad that it made it on a deck because it is unbelievable. So
this
is amazing.
It's a PT Cruiser. on the middle of a land yachts board that he designed with so much sick, like it's so much sick artwork around it that really appeals to me. I would love to know who the artist is, because this is all very like early mid 2000s inspired. There's some flaming eyeballs. Everything's on fire basically. There's a little cruiser looking thing next to it.
There's like a foot that's cut off riding a skateboard.
There's an eye driving the car with a tongue out, and there's a little smiley face. There's everything around it. Skull with eyes coming out.
The skull's got the eyes coming out of its head. And it's got a skeleton hand like this.
Man, it's everything. It's everything that I loved as a child.
You were saying like the eyeball kind of give you Neversoft vibes. Like
it reminds
Tony
me
Hawk?
of the start of Tony Hawk, which is crazy because that's just a loading screen of a game
on a PS2.
On a PS2 game, but that really reminds me of that.
Doesn't that tell you how art in skateboarding can stick with you if it's iconic enough?
So influential.
Talking about a loading screen of a Tony Hawk game.
Yeah.
Like it's so crazy.
That reminds me of the World Industry style. We've got a drop through lanyards. I'm going to assume that's I
would love Clayton.
Kill switch.
Yeah.
I want not a kill switch.
No kill switch, a 9 to 5 or a switch blade. Clayton, if you're watching this, let us know the significance of this board.
Was it your first?
Was it your first?
First love?
Because if it was, that's so sick. You know what I mean? It's personal to him.
Yeah. Everything about this graphic is so sick. The art style is I wish I knew more about
very
art.
World Industries. It's a vibe.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it so much.
It's kind of that there's like a layer of something over the board.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like sublimed into the board.
Yeah, like Rain used to do that tattoo. They would call it like tattoo because it was in. Yeah.
So you know this is going to get protected. Not like you're ever going to scratch this, but I feel like you could scratch this and it'd be fine.
Yeah.
And I would never ever put a sticker over the middle of it.
Nah,
sticker in there, or sticker in there.
But they've given you kind of spots to put stickers in a way. That's a sick spot.
I feel like there was thought to that too when this is.
Well, this whole graphic feels like a sticker bomb come together into like one thing. To be honest, to me, like I don't know, it's so cool, man. Honestly, but that's
sick
me.
Board. Shout out Clayton.
Shout out Clayton. Come to Brazil.
Yeah,
Australia. That is.
Well, like the Sector 9 downhill division.
Yeah.
Gen 1 and Gen 2, and I'm not going to whip them out. I'll just put a photo up. But I got.
He wants to whip them
Flex right now. I've got the entire collection of Gen 1, entire collection of Gen 2. But that red and yellow. Mm-hmm. Well, in Gen 1, it was black and yellow. There wasn't really any red yet. And then in the second generation, they had the Scoot Smith board, which was primarily green. Same style graphics with the pinup girls. Super iconic. The Brandy had, in the Gen 2, had blue. And the Lacey had blue too.
Just pop them up. Just bang, bang, bang across the screen.
Yeah, I'm not going to pull them out because
I'll
end up wanting to show them all.
Yeah.
But
and he loves them.
Yeah. the Gen 1 Sector 9s, they all came out with the pinup girls. And like, come on, it goes without saying, if you're a young dude, that graphic was sick.
Yeah.
If you were an older generation who had like an interest in like tattoo culture, it's like, that's sick. For female skaters, it's like, okay, there's a female on the board, like I'm going to get that board. So many different reasons why, but they, for me, as a huge Sector 9 fan, are some of the most iconic graphics in downhill skating of all time, like the Daisy, like which ended up turning into the Arrow, the Louis Poloni model, similar shape with some slight changes to the concave.
And many would argue boards have copied since.
Oh yeah, 100%.
You know what I mean? Taking inspiration from at the minimum.
Yeah, but those Sector 9 graphics, the Gen 1 and Gen 2 of the downhill division. And what I like, and I don't own the entire collections of the later downhill divisions, but what I loved about Sector 9 is similar to their surf-inspired graphics, similar to their hand-drawn bamboo style graphics, and then the Bob Marley ones is there was always a theme in their lineups. So Gen 1 and Gen 2, the pin-up girls, incorporating Sector 9 colors, the red and the yellow at the time, like, you know, Mitty.
Yeah.
The downhill team, the Bumblebee suits, the black, the white, the yellow.
It was everything.
So yeah, and when someone was at an event, it was like they were like like the Sector 9 teams.
They were the superheroes.
Exactly,
It
man.
made it feel legit. Like, legit.
It was a sports team.
But then the Gen 3 downhill division had like a Viking kind of style, all similar artwork on the graphics.
Colours,
the
very
difference
different.
was the colors.
Yeah.
So you had a yellow, a purple, a red,
which made it
blue.
easier to distinguish.
Yeah.
But I think we all prefer the older ones. You know what I mean?
Because of how iconic it was.
Iconic, yeah.
But the fact that Sector 9 put thought into keeping like a lineup and a style, I just think that's so important. And even though they're not as popular, those later downhill divisions, they all have theme, and I feel like that's really important.
You can hang it on the wall in a lineup.
Yeah.
That is so sick.
For 4 generations.
Yeah.
Pretty much. Just
and everyone knows someone, even now, everyone knows someone. This is 12 years later, I think.
I think
everyone knows someone that has that board or has had that board, no matter when you started. Like, it is mental. Those are so iconic in every way. Yeah.
One more graphic I want to speak about, and it's not a popular one at all, and I've got a photo to show you guys because this board's in my garage. But my first ever proper downhill board was a Land Yachts. It was a Chinook, a drop down. It had a flat 0-degree tail and then a wedged front.
Have you seen this board, Milo?
It's a wood grain. It's a wood grain deck. So coming back to like plain boards and, you know, carbon fiber, that black carbon fiber these days is really popular. But this deck, the graphic was wood grain with a graphic that didn't cover the whole board or put a color on the board. And it's just like a skull of like a monkey over the, and I'll put a photo of it. But I just thought that the way that they put a graphic that wasn't all one color, it was kind of just sitting on top of the wood. I was like, I really like that because it's showing the natural colors of the wood with a sick graphic on top of it. And I'd like to see more of that on boards. And it's kind of similar to the Clayton Arthur Blaze, how it's a black board with the graphic in the middle. Didn't have to cover the entire board. But yeah, just that wood finish on boards. But dude, this is a conversation, and I love doing this podcast because so many of the conversations we can have, you can have multiple times with different people and get different answers. But it's been sick to unpack a lot of these boards. Like, what else, just quickly, you don't even need to like really talk about what else is an iconic graphic?
I've got 2 special mentions.
Yep.
One is the Fernando Yuppie Eats Wheels.
Oh, his double kick jet board.
He's eating ABEC 11 wheels like cereal. I'm going to assume at the time they were probably no schools.
Probably no schools.
So they look like Oreos.
Yeah, he's eating them like Oreos. That and the Rain Vandal, sick board.
Yeah,
skulls and that. You know what I mean?
It was still in Rain style, but that graphic was kind of different to the earlier boards. It was a bit more simple.
Yeah,
but still very Rain style.
Definitely way more simple than some of their other ones, but that's a sick board too.
Yep. Really?
Like, there's just so many graphics. And it's so subjective. Like, I could say something right now that could annoy a lot of people.
Like, you know,
lack of better word.
I would love if Harry was here for Harry to share his thoughts on this topic.
I'm sure we would butt heads 100%. But like, one that I kind of like, and it's a newer graphic because it's getting better and better, is Carbon look.
Yep.
And you can tell straight away. So like Max Caps, you know, Prototype Racing.
Yep.
He wrapped a board for me a couple of years ago, and he puts his little logo at the bottom, and besides that, it's a very simple board.
Yep.
Carbon boards are sick. You see a triple beam, like out in the wild or on pictures, you know straight away it's triple beam.
Yeah.
It's got like a little bit of Land Yachts on it and stuff like that. Carbon's amazing.
Yeah.
So for me, I'm kind of leaning towards simple is better, and that's probably my only special mention. Whether or not that means I'll go simple is better, we'll see soon.
Yeah.
Who knows? Yeah. Milo?
Any boards?
Simple.
Any boards at all?
Go to the toilet.
I got to pee.
Yeah.
I'm going to pee my pants.
The battery's about to die.
Yeah, look, it's going.
Oh, it actually is.
So I think we're going to wrap it up. Thank you, Milo, for jumping on.
No
Thanks,
worries.
Mitty, for jumping
Always.
on. Thanks, Dom. Thanks to everyone who watches the Get That Skate podcast. I think I'm going to have this exact same conversation again in the future.
Definitely something worth doing.
Definitely something worth doing. Graphics are so sick. boards with carbon fiber finishes or plain graphics are so sick because it gives, like we mentioned, it gives the individual a blank canvas to put their stickers or their sponsors or make it theirs. But let us know in the comments what your favorite graphic is, what the most iconic graphics have been over the time, and like I'd love to read comments about that. But also, if you want to leave more of a comment, tell me what you would have on your graphic if you could choose a graphic.
100%.
Shout out to you boys.
Let's go.
Shout out to Jacopo for helping out all the way from Italy to GTS. New stuff soon. Shout out everyone for watching the Get That Skate podcast. I'm Jack Main. You're a legend. Thank you.
Let's go. Wait, do we do the music for the outro? Come on.
Mom's gotta go to the toilet.